Okay, so welcome back to the House of Arg show. Welcome to part 2 of tonight's episode. We have a special guest with us tonight. I want to see if he's with us. Part 2. Oh, for those who don't understand what's going on, so we have a new format that we're doing. We've shortened the show by an hour, so we're only doing 2-hour shows from this point forward, and we're going to break up those 2 hours into 2 separate parts. We're going to record them back to back, but then when we put the recordings up on the YouTube channel, we will split them up into part 1 and part 2. First hour, second hour, so that it makes it easier for anybody who wants to listen in to the recordings to kind of choose. It's less daunting to have to listen to 2 straight hours. We're hoping it makes it more appealing that way. We're just trying to make it easier for everybody. We want everybody to listen. So anyway, we have tonight, let me see, is he in the, I don't see him. I'm going to go back and, oh, there he is. He's here. He's listening. So Rick is with us, and I want to, Rick Rose is a member of the group, the Facebook group, and he has a couple of topics that he brought up to me a couple weeks ago now, but that I find really interesting. I'm a big conspiracy nut, as Joe will tell you, with a roll of his eyes. But I enjoy it. I think it's fun. Some of them I know for sure, like, all right, this is just a stupid conspiracy, but it's still fun. And some of them are stupid conspiracies.
The operative word
and they're
being
not
some. You
tend
to believe more than the average person, but
that's probably true.
Yeah.
But that's only because there's some of them that have been proven. You know what I mean? Like, you can't just, the minute when even one of them turns out to be true, you got to go, well, I guess we can't just discard every single one. We got to, how many more of these are actually true? So, but some of them are obviously not true. Like, I'm not a flat earther. Let's not get crazy here.
Okay, so I'll give you some credit.
And it's not like I don't believe we didn't land on the moon. Right? So there's 2 points for me.
Great.
Anyway, so Rick Rose is he's got a couple of things he'd like to.
So who do I gotta unmute? Is that Sick Rick 665?
I'm working on it.
Is that?
Yeah, it's Sick Rick. I'm working on it.
All right.
So
I got it. Leave the guy with the computer.
Right. Rick, are you with us? Are you listening?
Yeah, I think I'm here, man.
All right. We can hear you.
Woo!
All right.
How you doing, Rick?
All right, man. Yeah, okay. I'm a little unprepared for my topics here, man, but my brain is farting. I was thinking about that dude that plays Hawkeye in the Captain Marvel movie or whatever.
Yeah,
Jeremy Renner.
That guy. Every time I see him, I can't remember correctly, but I'm pretty sure the first movie I ever saw him in, he played a skinhead who dated a black chick who thought she was the reincarnation of Hitler. And so I'm not imagining that then. Okay.
No,
I feel like people bring that up more often.
Oh, you know what? Speaking of which, I keep forgetting about this. You just reminded me. There's a movie. Okay, you know the director for the last Thor movie, the best one out of the group that was all cool and it had the
Ragnarok. You mean?
Yeah, Thor Ragnarok.
I don't know who the director was, but that was the name of the movie.
Well, he's a New Zealander, and that director is making a movie right now about a young boy in Germany, a young German boy in Germany during World War II, around like 1939, 1940, who is sort of self-conscious and sort of an introvert and has trouble in social situations with his peers. And so as a way to cope with that or deal with it, he develops an imaginary friend who just happens to be Adolf fucking Hitler. That is the concept of the movie. And I got to tell you, folks, I can't wait to fucking see this. That sounds amazing to me. I really want to see it because that guy is hilarious and he makes funny movies. And I think this is going to be a great thing to see and a very funny concept. So I just thought I'd share that with you guys. Keep a lookout for that one.
We're getting to a weird place, man. Fucking.
You're here to talk about conspiracy theories, and you're like, "This is weird. We're talking about a movie."
No, just I was talking the other day. I saw a fucking commercial for something about a guy who beat up Bigfoot and Hitler. We're just like weirdly obsessed with fucking Hitler these days, man.
That's a really good.
I'm like,
that's a fun movie.
Well, because don't you know half the country is Nazis?
Right. It's like
so
this
relevant.
whole like we missed it the first time. It reminds me like I don't know if any of you listen to Hardcore History, but there was like a beginning of one where he was talking about the Genghis Khan, but he got I got an idea for a book, and he goes, but no one's brave enough to write it. And he goes, write a book, but just all the positive aspects of Hitler and Nazi Germany. He goes, a bunch of people will buy it and read it. We're just like in this weird place where we may be getting to the other side of fucking, I don't know. Like, we're weirdly obsessed with Hitler and Nazis these days. It's fucking, it's weird to me. Like,
there's definitely an emphasis on that, and I think that that's the zeitgeist, as it were.
It's fucking role playing, man. It's I don't know. Yeah.
I mean, I think the reason is like I joked about this 10 seconds ago, but it's true. I mean, you have people who legitimately think that half the country is a bunch of fascists.
Well, we just had a congressional I think it was a congressional committee where they talked about the rise of white nationalism and neo-Nazism and what to do about it. And it's like, there were like maybe two panelists who really kind of said, hey, that's not really the problem. It's not, you guys are focusing on
like
something
multiple
small.
Open anti-Semites in Congress. I think white supremacy is like the least of your problems here, but
that's a curious question. What do you guys think about Elon? Do you that she's legitimately anti-Semitic, or do you feel that that the argument on the left is that she's just critical of?
Oh no, she's anti-Semitic.
Very anti-Semitic.
Absolutely.
He's anti-Semitic, but like it's kind of inseparable. Like at some point in time, when you fucking make race, state, and religion synonymous, that's kind of a pickle they created themselves. They kind of unfuck. Like I don't know. Like you get, it's like you make yourself beyond reproach because fucking if you criticize Israel, you're effectively criticizing the people of Israel. So what the fuck is it? So you can be like, well, it's anti-Semitic. Well, yeah, I guess, but fucking, you unfuck that mess.
See, I want to say I clearly agree because I've been there. I know what you're talking about, and I've dealt with the same thing talking to people about Obama, where it's like if you're critical of anything Obama says, to some people that automatically equates to you're racist. You can't be critical of him without it being somehow about his skin color.
We all remember
and
2008. It was
And you're like, did I mention his fucking race? Like at any point in time, did I mention his fucking hair, the way he walked, the way he talked, his skin, anything?
With policy decisions. It has nothing to do with it. So the idea of somebody being able to be critical of Israel without being anti-Semitic, of course, absolutely. But I guess that's why I brought it up, was to see, do you guys feel that she's just being critical, that it's not?
She's a fucking broken clock, man.
I think
say that again.
Ray and Chat
she's a broken clock.
Sorry, I'm talking at the same time as Ray.
One of you at a time, please.
Sorry, I'm new here.
Let me say this. Like Ray nails it in. He says she's legitimately anti-Semitic. She's only critical of Israel. If she were equally as critical of Saudi Arabia, China, Brunei, etc., for human rights abuses, that's fine. But she's not. She only criticizes Israel, and that is the thing that people need to understand. That is when anti-Israel becomes anti-Semitism. Is when you have that double standard. When you don't hold the rest of the Middle East or even the rest of the world to the same standard, then yes, the only differentiating factor is one of them is a bunch of Jews and the other is not. So yes, you're an anti-Semite. Like, that is what it is.
Going to that, you just reminded me of something that's kind of in the news right now, is that Obama and Hillary both tweeted out sort of condolences, as it were, about the Easter weekend shooting that happened bombing that happened in Sri Lanka. For anybody who doesn't know, which I can't imagine anybody doesn't, but just to make sure, this past weekend, during Easter weekend in Sri Lanka, there were several bombings that targeted both churches and tourist hotels, like luxury hotels or something. I think there were a total of 9 targets.
Yeah, something like 200, like almost 300 deaths. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It approaching 300. Yeah, it's like just shy of 300, and then like 600 injured or something in that ballpark.
Yeah.
It's awful.
Right, and here's the thing: is there was no warning. There was this wasn't. The context seems to be missing. There doesn't seem to be any warning as to, or there was no. This wasn't in retaliation for something recent that happened.
I just saw ISIS took credit for it.
Yeah, from what I understand, there was
the fact, which is weird because normally they're really quick on that.
Yeah.
Right. From what I understand, part of the reason that this even happened was that there are 2 officials in Sri Lanka, the prime minister and I want to say the
president.
The president, who don't get along, and because they don't get along, they don't interact. The bureaus that they're in charge of, or the branches of government that they head, don't work together. And there was a intelligence briefing that came to them weeks ago that said there's a future attack imminent, that was completely ignored. And from what I understand, the reason it was ignored is because of this infighting between both the president and the prime minister.
Yeah, president knew about. The president had intel on this planned attack, and he didn't relay it to the prime minister. And the prime minister is like, "Guys, like, I'm just now finding out about this," and he's basically like, the prime minister is now like cleaning house, because this is like basically as bad as it can get.
This is a fuck up.
Yeah.
This is
right.
Like this whole feud, like whatever causes, I don't really know. But it
might have to do. They've been a mess for a fucking while, because Sri Lanka is part of like why I was here to talk. Yeah. They've lost most of their ports because they've got a lot of debt, from borrowing money from outside countries, and they've one of the first countries where China's actually come in and claimed all their ports after not being able to pay back the debt on loans from China. And China is slowly going around and acquiring property and infrastructure in places they've loaned money to gain, power, in the South China Sea. And that's what Sri Lanka is, a port right down in the South China Sea.
So, you know what? That's a great segue into what you were actually here to talk about, which is 2 topics. And the first of those is what we're now discussing, which is Chinese usury. And as you explained that to me when we talked about it the first time, they're using that as sort of a global weapon.
They're basically
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, they've been using it basically to gain territory all around the country, kind of on the background, for quite some time now. I mean, Uh,
How long?
fuck, probably at least 10 years, maybe longer. I mean,
And
Chinese.
you called that like a modern colonization, right? Like that's what they're
Well,
doing.
well, like I mean, if you look at South Africa, they're teaching Mandarin Chinese in their schools now. That's how colonized they're getting. Basically, after they kicked the white farmers out and basically post apartheid, China's come in and occupied the spaces that a lot of other countries used to, like just created a power vacuum. And
Maybe
because they needed money, China was there to lend the money. And of course, when these countries can't pay back the money, they just go in and rather than, start selling things off, they just take over the infrastructure. And all the money is strategically lent to areas, of course.
so they're using um, loans and interests to sort of
Seize territory. Territory.
right to capture territory in a
Yeah, like
sense.
money's just a proxy for war now. Like that's why we're interdependent in trade. That's what fucking globalism is. It's just like we don't have like sensible trade with other countries. We fucking cut down a tree in Canada, we ship it off to China, it's made into a fucking skateboard and shipped back here. Like it's not like really because it's fucking stupid, really, and it's just to make us interdependence because the more interdependent we are, the less likely we'll go to war with each other. But that only works for so fucking long. And most other countries have figured out that they can use economics as a tool of warfare by seizing territory through loans and interest.
Do you feel that how does this relate to our current president and his trade war with China? Is any of that in response to
Well,
this
like
year
I don't think
usury
the
proxy war?
I don't think that the steel tariffs have a lot to do with Trump. I think they were in the works for a while because we've got some agreements going with Australia right now to kind of isolate China off from the steel trade. Because like we're looking probably in the next 10 years at a completely bifurcated economy. Like we will not, and like there'll be a Western and an Eastern hemisphere, one dominated by the United States and Europe, and an Eastern hemisphere controlled by China. Like they're already working on running wires to separate off their internet. Like we're working on trade deals all the way around them, basically. And that's what the tariffs are do. It's to disincentivize other countries from buying the steel.
So you feel that as far as trade and economics goes, war between the Eastern and Western hemispheres is going to only escalate in the coming
Right,
years.
right. Eventually, there's not going to be a financial means to work this out. We're already running out of it because we can take every dime
Is there
that
not?
every huh?
What seems to be the issue? I mean, let's break this down like I'm stupid because I am. I'm stupid. So I need to know what are we're just warring over who has more money? Is that or who has more control over trade?
Well, it becomes control of trade and it becomes control of land. Like
So trade's
Venezuela,
route.
like look at Venezuela. Like Venezuela right now, like we're kind of like we're bickering back and forth because we want a certain government to take over. But the guy that's in there right now in the previous government, they were dealing with China, the fatherland card or whatever they're using that those people are using there. That was created by Huawei, I believe, or ZTE. I can't fucking remember one or the other. But
Are
like,
you saying that what's his name, Maduro in
had
Venezuela?
deals with China. Yeah, like China owns massive amounts of Venezuelan debt and was already ready to come in and scoop up their infrastructure. And that puts China like dangerously close to the United States. Like that's why places like Brazil are looking to join NATO is because like there's China can't launch an attack from China, but they can launch one from Venezuela. And like literally we're like I believe it was like a month ago that our ships in the South China Sea were officially given permission to go on the offensive. Uh, uh, because they've been brushing up against us pretty regularly right there. Like, oh, excuse me.
That's a good question. Are there Chinese troops in Venezuela?
I don't believe so. Not right now, but I've heard possibilities of Russian troops popping up down there. And
Right. So here's my curiosity. Given that you just stated that China was setting itself up to basically, let me make sure I understand this correctly. was China responsible for at least some portion of Venezuela's degradation?
Well, I think they supported the government and they supported the socialist changeover. I think they loan the money at a high interest rate intentionally. They know the country can't pay it back, and that's the goal is the seizing of the infrastructure, because Venezuela does have oil. It's garbage fucking oil that's hard to really fiddle fuck with. I mean, everybody keeps talking about Venezuela. Right, oil is oil, but it's not the crown jewel of the. I mean,
Wait. I thought crude oil was crude oil was crude oil was crude oil. Are you saying that the oil that you pull out of the ground, like you process it and refine it, and that's how you get?
Josh, the Venezuela crude is a very heavy, dirty crude oil. It's very difficult to refine, and
so there are different grades of crude oil. That's all I'm asking. I didn't know that.
And the two big ones that would refine it would be China and the U.S. And we stopped refining their shit a long time ago.
We're not touching that.
We don't do that.
And so China wants oil, and so it's and we don't really need it. For us, it's more of a strategic positioning thing. We don't want China to control a country that close to us, because it becomes like a second Cuba, is what it really becomes. And
well, here's my curiosity: if China helped, I apologize. I don't mean to interrupt. I'm just I've had this question for a while. I just want to make sure I understand everything. If China had a hand, it was setting up Venezuela to fail, so that they could come in and seize the assets. Why aren't we hearing about them being involved in what's going on now between the U.S. and Russia, fighting over who's going to take over Venezuela next, and kind of this Cold War clash, as it were? Like
the same reason you haven't seen China really show hide nor hair in any other conflict since about 1970. China thinks in generations, not political cycles. Like they don't, they move slowly. Huh?
No, that was a really good answer.
Right, they do. That's not how they roll. I mean, China's in a weird place. China's about to hit, after a one-child policy for 2 or 3 generations, where they're going to have 120 men to every 100 women. That's like civilization breaking. Like, it's going to fuck up their population. Most of their population already lives on less than $2 a day. When they talk about this second largest economy, that's relative to the United States, and we have fucking I think like 1/3 of their population. Right, it's like not only the lead, but the number of people dependent on that actual economy. So like when you consider China's economy is the second largest, that's like nothing of fucking China. Most of China is like a semi-retarded backwoods fucking rice farmer somewhere, if he can farm rice, because they've got to import it from our ass. And so it's like they have fucking problems, is what I'm saying. And so they're basically trying to fucking basically split their currency and get it out there. Like, they're loaning their money based on our debt. And so it's this really weird kind of house of cards, because if they come, basically everything's kind of running on this weird fucking Ponzi scheme right now, like based on our ability to fucking create more money. China creates more money under the fact that we can pay off debt by creating more money. They're buying up shit on the idea that people can't pay it back, and then they're fucking seizing the assets. So it kind of creates this financial dead end where it doesn't go back into the system. And it's fucking.
So I'm curious, does the U.S. know that they've been trying to colonize, and that they've been?
Oh, fuck yeah, man. Fucking.
So what are we doing about it?
There's not a lot we can really out public, you know what I'm saying? I guess technically we're allies, so and you always wonder about that, because it's fucking we go into places for human rights abuses, and you're always like, oh, but we do business with China, and they fucking literally are selling their people's organs on the black market, not even the black market, just the regular old fucking Chinese market, I guess. They sell dog on the Chinese market, so I guess prisoner heart isn't really that big of a stretch of the imagination.
I still think that's a big leap from dog to a person's fucking
I don't know. I guess
organs.
it depends on what the person did. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'd like, you know,
Wow.
I
Yeah,
guess.
I guess. Jesus.
I like
Well, and that's
dogs. Fucking yeah.
no, yeah, I agree. I like dogs too. Um, so what effect, if any, is this trade war that we're involved in right now with China? What effect is that going to have on what they're doing? Is it going to put a halt on that? Are they going
Well,
to are they viewing our trade war as somehow impeding their efforts?
it's just it increases the chances of conflict because it's slowing them down, and
Right.
it shows like a willingness to kind of fuck with like our interdependent trade, and like that's kind of the it's a flex thing. It's to find out who's going to flinch. Whoever flinches first, you know, it's like it's kind of a pissing contest because of course they're like, well, we'll raise our tariffs. We'll raise our tariffs. Both countries are trying to find out who's fucking serious and if we're ready to like, you know, break our trade and, you know, really go at it. You know what I'm saying?
What is their end goal? You say in regards to China
China
using.
wants to have like the number one economic, like basically its sphere of influence and control
Okay,
of
so
Yeah,
resources.
they want to
want to
drive
be
the
the
world
number one
economy the way
superpower.
that we do.
Right. Like it's a
Okay,
sphere of it's for sphere of influence, and they have a population. Like they have an unsustainable population, and they
so
need to grow.
right, is that the reason for colonization, to hopefully ship out
It's not
their
just the reason
population
for
to other
colonization,
areas?
but I mean, like, well, like they're doing the same thing in Canada. They've fucked up the goddamn Canadian real estate market by buying up property in Toronto at inflated prices. And like, I don't know if you know, like, I don't care if your house is worth $60,000. If every fucking house around yours is bought for $1 million, congratulations, bud. Your house is now worth fucking
Yeah.
$1 million.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
so they have completely shit the Toronto fucking real estate market because out of state Chinese millionaires are buying property in Toronto. And
You know what's
fucking,
curious is um, I just read that a lot of Canadian-based millionaires are moving out. They're leaving the country, and they're selling their mansions, their you know uh, properties that were millions of dollars, and so they're because I guess they had a thing. They had some sort of Canada has some sort of law that causes that costs or charges a fee when you're during half the year when you're not actually in the house. If you're not using the house, there's some sort of taxation on that, and it costs too much, and a lot of millionaires are shipping out
yeah,
because they don't want to pay that extra cost, and so they're taking their income, right, and their revenue with them, and kind of leaving Canada high and dry by doing that. I'm curious. I wonder if that's somehow tied into what you're talking about.
I believe it is actually, and Vancouver is another city where Asians in general have been, not just Chinese, but Asian millionaires and whatever, have been buying up properties left and right. And I don't know if I didn't know that this was Canada wide. I knew Vancouver had put into effect some sort of law to try to prevent that from happening because it's driving up the cost of living just through the roof up there. Kind of like places like San Francisco and other high income housing markets, and so it was really screwing with the local people. And so they've been trying to find a way to fix that.
Wow.
well, they've had some other issues up there, haven't they? Were like was it a year or two back where basically they allowed some Chinese business to either buy up property there or some businesses there, and then basically immediately this business was fucking dissolved and basically folded into the communist government. And so basically now you've got Canadian land and businesses owned by which of course every business in China is fucking elbows linked from the communist government. Like there's not really anything separate, if you can call it communism, whatever the fuck they've got going on there. Like the businesses are not.
I heard from a God, this was years ago, but I remember there was executive for one of the oil companies, like Chevron or something like that, who was over in China, and he said that he had asked the government officials that he was talking to. He said, "So do you guys like still call what you do communism, or is it socialism, or what?" And they looked at him and said, "We do." Or that's what he said. Do you guys still operate on communism? Is that your government, as it were? And they looked at him and said, "We do whatever works, and we'll call it, and we just call it socialism."
Right. No, like fucking.
kind of
I mean, those people trade there. Yeah, like I mean, it's all about making money there now. Like those fucking people will sell their grandma to make fucking a dime, man. Like I
can't blame them, because I would sell their grandmother for a dime too. I mean,
right. But I mean, they were making. I saw this one where these guys got fake beer, and then you find out that it literally costs these motherfuckers more to make fake beer and bottle it up than it would be just to get the shit to make beer. They just don't know how to fucking make beer, but they want to make some fucking money. So like they're literally killing motherfuckers by making fake beer, and they don't give a shit. They're just out selling it on the street, you know, like it's just a weird culture that way. And yeah, it's like whatever works. Like they're people like you're
diet communism.
It's not even communism.
Yeah.
It's just totalitarianism, really. Like, because the people are allowed, like you said, to trade kind of amongst each
what's
other.
The difference?
Fucking, it's hard to tell. Like, it's just, it's just nuts. Like, it fucks with your definition of about everything. 'Cause for the rich there, it's capitalism, man. You know, fucking, and I'm sure that's the way it ends up working in any situation. You know, it's like because. The problem with communism is that everybody's got to be fucking communist. Otherwise, you still end up having to trade externally in a free market. And that's why, like, you know, it's kind of an issue, is because it's got to fucking spread.
Oh, bummer.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Right.
That's always hard. Like, I feel so bad for them.
On a related note, like, I had a tweet that went semi-viral a while back on this, but, like, I love how communists always blame like outside sanctions on communism's failures,
right?
Because what that implies is communism needs a strong capitalist country to trade with in order to work.
Right.
Like, think about that for a second.
Right. Well, it speaks to the inviolability of it, because my point is always like, look, viable means
if this works, then
the outside
it should work self-contained.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not self-sustainable.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, viability means without the capitulation of everyone else, because not every fucking system. These people don't understand. Like in the United States, they're like, why do we need the fucking largest army, like, and that big? It's like, because fucking the next 10 countries down would gladly fucking come in here and set this on fire. It's like, it's ultimately survival, and fucking everyone who's in charge of anything remembers that at the end of the fucking day.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, we have the two superpower policy. I don't even know if I'm getting that name right, but we have that policy for a reason, and it's basically that we can take on both China and second China, like whatever military superpowers exist in the world, we can take on two of them and survive. That's our goal,
right?
And yeah, it's there for a reason, like.
And it's like, I always tell people, like, I don't like it. I was like, but I sit down and I think about it, you know, every once in a while. And it's like, you can look around the fucking world and realize, like, if fucking there wasn't some kind of threat to, like, not fucking it all up, people would just fuck it all up. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
yeah. Well, you know, hopefully we figure it out, and hopefully we come out on top, because I wasn't born Chinese, so I want them to lose.
We've already got shit like in place here. Like, that's the fucked up shit. You gotta think about, like, Google was helping with that, Microsoft was helping with their fucking social credit system, and I always look at places like those Amazon brick and mortar stores that don't take cash is like a fucking commissary when the time hits. You know what I'm saying? Because I know Amazon has contracts with the Department of fucking Defense, so I don't get it twisted when I see a store that will not take a fucking dollar bill in my pocket, fucking with doors that won't even open if my fucking phone doesn't register right. You know?
Yeah.
So you think that cashless? So let's talk about that for a second. You think cashless stores are because of some deeper, I guess, conspiracy, so to speak.
Well, yeah, I would agree with that. I think the whole, but I don't think it's just cashless stores. It's a cashless system. They want
I think
everything
it's a
to go
bad
digital.
precedent.
You don't think it's just because it's more convenient than
No.
handing physical
No.
bills?
Here we've had politicians and economists and whatnot who are proponents of a cashless system say exactly why they want it. And
Yes.
it's not because it's more efficient. They're like, so we can track everything you do.
Yes, and they can
Yeah.
That's
control
the
it in
stated
here.
goal.
If they have it to where it's cashless, if you own physical currency, if you have in your possession physical currency, they don't control that. If they take that off the table and all currency becomes digital, they have access to that. They can shut it down, they can seize it, they can freeze it, they can do whatever they want with it. They can track it. It's all under their control at that point. So it's one less freedom you have. In fact, it's more than just one freedom. So there's a ton of ways that they can fuck with you if all of your stuff is digital, and that all ties into the whole bullshit of having a chip as well. That they use to identify you with, that they use, you just swipe your chip across a scanner at the grocery store to buy your groceries, and you swipe it at the bank, and you swipe it anywhere you go to make any sort of exchanges. All of that gets shut down. You are essentially tied into a system that they control at that point. And if you will do what they want, or you won't eat, and you won't get your money out of the bank, or you won't be able to make any transactions. You're fucked. I don't know. That to me is scary.
Oh yeah, fucking. I think about it a lot when I see that shit, dude. Fucking yeah.
I mean, I find it really funny that, I mean, on the segment about conspiracy theories, I became the one non-believer in the conspiracy theory. This was like a 3 against 1 thing. Let's take note of that.
Yeah, and
I don't know if it's a conspiracy, but the mechanism.
Well,
Like,
I mean,
we're talking about a government whose leaders don't even really understand email. Like, they're barely grasping 90s technology. Okay, like.
But that's wait. You're under the impression that those leaders are the actual leaders.
Oh no. I know that, like, the FBI obviously knows way more than Congress does. Anybody can tell you that.
Our intelligence community doesn't. Yeah, our president knows. Our intelligence community provides briefings daily for the president. And they take information that they have collected over time, and they figure out a way to not only condense it, but to present it in a quick and easily digestible manner so that the president can make quick, rapid decisions based on that information. Now, because the intelligence community is in control of that information, they present him with what they want in the way that they want to guide him down making the decisions and taking the paths that they would prefer he do. Like, that goes hand in hand. That makes perfect sense to me, that those are the people you need to start looking at. Those are the ones kind of guiding things.
No, that was a joke about Congress, but I mean, it is true. But the joke was implying that they actually would pull the strings here. But
right. So, you know what? We've only got 20 minutes left, and I kind of want to touch. Excuse me. I'm sorry. I'm drinking these rock stars. I wanted to touch on. What's that?
Drinking these rock stars, plural?
Well, normally I have one of the big ones. They've got the big can, and I usually drink one of those. I only drink them during the show, and it's to get that extra boost of energy.
Okay.
But
alcohol does that for me.
They didn't have the. No, alcohol just makes me goofy. I won't make.
Yeah, and I guess you're goofy enough as is.
Right, exactly. So
I need the boost, though.
Yeah, you probably do. You're a little bit. You're a little bit tame.
I don't
knew it was
know.
gonna
I don't know
happen.
if I should be insulted or what. I genuinely don't know.
It felt like an insult.
It felt like it,
It
but like
did.
I'm thinking about it, and it's just like maybe. Like I don't know. Was that?
No, but seriously,
I'm just
Rick,
confused.
we were talking about we were gonna you were gonna bring up the polls.
Yes.
Oh man, yeah. Well, I saw a thing where they
Talking
fucking fucking polls, man.
Yeah.
But
let's clarify. We're moving on from the Chinese usury story, and we're moving on to our second topic that you had brought up to me in chat, which is the Earth's magnetic poles, and that they are potentially shifting. And I think that's an interesting concept, interesting theory. Some people might consider that to be conspiracy worthy.
right. Well, I ran
why
like
don't you
hell
tell
with
us about
it,
it?
man. Huh?
Say that again.
I said I ran like hell with it. That's what I was saying. I said this was my crazy town fucking thought happened, and then when
I love Crazy Town, so let's talk about it.
well, no, because I saw a thing, right? Okay, there was a book called The Prelude to Adam and Eve, I guess, that was classified in like 1964. Why? I
Mhm.
don't know. But it was declassified under a Freedom of Information request in 2013, but they only released 50-something pages of it and kept 230-something pages of it redacted.
That's interesting. So what? And it's called the Adam and Eve.
The Prelude to Adam and Eve. It was a book that kind of covered like basically ancient civilizations and the cataclysms that wiped it out. And like the basic idea was, from what I saw and like what I kind of could glean from it, was basically this person had figured out how to predict polar shifts. And like from what I could tell,
wrote this?
accurately.
Who wrote this and when?
Fuck. I can't think of the name of it. Like I said, I'm kind of underprepared.
Yeah, this returns 0 Google results, by the way.
Right. Google Prelude to Adam and Eve.
Yeah,
Hold on a second.
it returns nothing.
Hold on here.
I
Like
know
the number one
magnetic
result
pole.
is Adam and Eve, the sex shop, which is to be expected, of course. Because what would
You know
we
what?
be-
You should have just posted that link anyway.
I mean, you can check that on your own
Hold
time.
on, I got it.
Yeah, if
I
you
got
have
it.
a link to
I'm-
it, Rick.
I'm
Yeah,
working
please
on it, man. Hold on a sec here. Here we go. It's
Okay,
in the,
all right. I'm just saying. Oh, there he goes. Web results. That's not.
That is not a link.
okay,
But
hold on a sec here.
It's
Those
cute,
are
though.
words.
It's very
It
cute.
is cute.
oh no, here we go. Here's just the plain text of whatever I found. No idea how
I don't
we got there.
remember. Oh, Paul says he posted it 2 weeks ago.
Oh.
Well, posted it
This is
again.
what happens when crackheads try to use the internet.
Here we go.
All right.
There we go.
Okay, so now there's a link
The
for
Adam and
anybody
Eve
who's
story.
interested.
Okay. It's not Prelude, the Adam and Eve story. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
that's why it didn't come up.
And it's a CIA document?
Yeah, it's a real one. It looks like
That's crazy.
CIA.gov.
Does anybody else find this curious that, like, this is what the CIA is doing when we're not paying attention? Like, really? You
Yeah.
investigated Adam and Eve? What's
Well,
going on over there?
here's where my shit gets crazy town, because the idea is basically that all these ancient civilizations were wiped out by some kind of cataclysm, basically, and these people thought it was a polar shift. And that's why, like, there's whale bones at the top of the Himalayan mountains, but not embedded in the fucking mountains, is because at some point in time, water levels rose fast enough and receded fast enough to actually leave animals beached on these mountains,
Wow.
which means it had to happen pretty fucking quick. And so
Yeah.
people so basically their idea is that these religions are kind of, or whatever kind of information passed down through each cataclysm. That's how we get kind of knocked back to word of mouth. But neither here nor there. the reason the book was classified is because basically the CIA, I think, was pretty much aware of this shit. You know, I think a lot of governments are, like with my crazy Crown Town conspiracy thought
I
on
do
it.
too, Graham. Sorry, go
And
ahead.
that's why they start hustling for fucking resources and money when it seems like why? Like, you know, there's no end game in sight. So why are you hoarding? I guess would be the question, you know, that you would ask. And, but then I started looking closer at it, and the Poles about 5 years ago started fucking heading towards Russia at 34 miles per year. That's not normal. That's like fucking like 30 times more than normal. Like, so it's starting to head, you know, it's starting to move pretty fucking quickly. And then you start to look at like all the migration shifts. They're moving people from south to north. And basically,
do you
start
believe that
you know,
all of? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
oh, well, like if the poles shift, like our weather is going to change significantly, right? You know.
Right. Well, here's my question to you. Do you feel that based on what, because I haven't read what you've read, I haven't done the research that you've done, however extensive that's been, but do you feel that the last 10 years or so of all of this global warming talk has been all these signs and you know, changes in our global weather, is that all a lead up to a massive pole shift?
You know, that's very possible because like I watched a thing, right, like not too long ago. It was an oil, I can't, goddamn, it was some oil fella, and he was doing a speech, you know, and some protester stood up, and she was like, what about our future, what about our children, right? And he looked at her and he goes, lady, shut the fuck up. He goes, shut your fucking mouth. He goes, you don't know a goddamn thing. He goes, and he looked at her and he goes, you do not know a fucking thing. He goes, look, I've been up there. He goes, we've taken the fucking cores ourselves. He goes,
oh yeah.
He goes, you can see weather shifts fucking every 40,000 years. He goes, it's cyclical. He goes, fucking nothing we do is everything we've ever put out in our entire existence is a fart in the wind of history. He goes, you think
in
you
the
get alone?
cosmos of time, it's not a fart in the wind.
Right. He goes, do you think you could get a fucking loan in London if all the people privy to these core samples and this knowledge fucking, you know, thought the world was going to be fucking submerged underwater in 12 years? He goes, you couldn't fucking invest in a condo on a beach anywhere. He goes, if fucking anybody who is privy to this information thought the fucking real estate was going to be underwater permanently in 12 fucking years. He goes, sit the fuck down.
That guy, I know what you're talking about. I'm trying to remember that guy's name.
Like, I'm paraphrasing the shit, but I mean, not much.
No,
you know,
but I know exactly what you're talking about. God damn it. He was on Joe Rogan a couple years back.
Yeah.
I think he's a big finance guy, if I remember correctly. I'm trying to find.
And it's just, you know, and with the pole shit, like, you know, because I saw a thing where I literally did like let myself go off into like fucking the rabbit hole with the polar shift thing. Mm-hmm. And a guy talked about it. He said, the book itself wasn't actually classified. Apparently you can go find it. He goes, what's classified is why the CIA questioned the authors of it. They wanted to know how they'd figured out, you know, how to predict the polar shifts so accurately at the time, because at the time they didn't think that anybody else had the technology to do so, so they had to have stolen it. And
so I remember, and I think I mentioned this before a couple weeks back in preparation for us talking about this, but I'm going to say it again. I remember reading, and this was years ago, I think I was a teenager, that some, I don't want to say archaeologists, but something to that effect, some people digging and stuff, found a woolly mammoth up in the Arctic north of the Chinese continent, so up in Russia. The Chinese continent, China, or
fucking Mongolia,
Asia. There you go, Asia.
Thank you. I'm bad with words today.
Orient.
Yes, the Orient. I don't know why that you're going to take me down a whole nother topic. Anyway, they found a completely intact woolly mammoth, and the curious thing was, it was frozen mid chew. Like it was eating food as it got frozen. So I guess what they deduced from that was that it was supposed to, the only way that's going to happen is if it if it flash froze. The temperature change had to be massive, and it had to be in a split second. And the only way that they could explain something like that is exactly what we're talking about now, is a pole shift. Which, if we were to undergo something like that, something similar would happen. If in fact that's a legitimate thing. So, my curiosity: how legitimate do you think it is that the idea that our poles will shift or do?
Oh, I think it's completely legitimate. Fucking, like I said, after I looked at it, you start seeing the rapid speed that it's picked up. Like, I mean, it clearly has happened before, and like that's kind of what that Adam and Eve story is about. Is like it's literally tracking, like kind of when these are suspected to have happened. And
so, does that mean we could expect? Do they? Whoever's predicting this pole shift, do they predict that we will see similar temperature and weather changes that will be, flash freezing, or temperature shifts that are so rapid as to be in a split second? Is that something we can expect if
I'm pretty sure they're expecting entire losses of continents, man, and fucking reemergences of other ones, kind of shit. You know what I'm saying? Like,
the entire face of the planet would change if this were the case. That means we're talking not just millions of deaths; we're talking billions.
Oh yeah, like fucking basically enough to reset us to the Stone Age. Fucking, I think a lot of what's going on is like attempts to kind of stockpile and save to prevent like another complete absolute reset. Because it seems like I've talked about this with other people before. Like like our written history is like a piss in the fucking bottle from the time we've been here. We've been here enough time that we could have literally been all the way up to where we're at and lost every last fucking bit of it and not have any evidence left to actually show that we've been there. I mean, there's entire fucking cities that are deep enough underground that if we weren't digging with excavators, we'd never find them,
Yeah, and it's curious too that that lends credence. Well, there's things that have happened in the last few hundreds of years that lends credence to the idea that we possibly have entire gaps, like we don't know our entire history. That there's a whole period of history that's missing. We have no records of, and that there was an incident.
Well, we stole our history, man. Like we stole them after we were let out of the Mongoloid caves, man. I read this or I saw it on YouTube or something.
We stole our history?
Yeah. No, I'm kidding. What do you mean by that? Like when we were let out of the Mongoloid caves. Like I don't know.
But I don't. But what does that mean, though? We stole our history.
I have no idea what it means, man.
You know what? I appreciate your honesty. That was that was my
Josh,
part of that.
Josh, I posted a link in the chat.
Okay.
There's evidence the NASA and NOAA have found clear physical evidence of magnetic pole shifts throughout the epochs, because you won't even say millennia, just over the time of the Earth, because the rock that is formed at certain periods of times has a different magnetic polarity. It's pointing in a different direction, and you see the layers as it shifts over and over and over again.
Okay, so this is a cyclical thing. It not only is it.
Oh yeah, it happens all the time.
It's guaranteed to happen. It happens all the time. When was the last time a magnetic pole shift happened?
I'll see if I can find.
I'd love to know that. And what kind of? I mean, is it possible that the poles shift and nothing happens, and we wouldn't even notice it?
790,000 years ago.
So no. The answer to my last question was probably no. So,
Yeah, we probably noticed the shit out of it.
What's funny is that based on what we know about evolution, we've been around, give or take, about 80,000 years since we came out of the caves, which is a drop in the bucket to 790,000 years. So if one does happen, I imagine that would be really devastating to our population.
And the severity of the consequences apparently depends upon how quickly the shift occurs. Whether it's a start, the faster it is, apparently the worse it would be, especially for things like earthquakes and volcanoes.
That would make sense because you're talking about such a event, So if it happens slowly, then you've got less of less chaos to deal with. But if you were to take something that you take a ball dipped in mud and then you turn it really fast, that mud's going to go flinging everywhere. I don't know if that's a stupid analogy on my part or not, but that's kind of how I see it. Ray says,
have to read more to know.
I mean, I could be wrong, but that's just thinking off the top of my head. That's how I imagine it would be. Ray says it doesn't happen at a regular interval. The gaps between shifts are highly variable.
Right.
At least when we're talking geologic timescales. Allison's posting links as well, magneticreversal.org. This is going to, I'll tell you this right now. I'm excited for the show to be over just so that I can go back to look at these fucking links. These look really interesting.
Here's a little bit more. Generally, pole shifts happen very gradually, taking anywhere from 1,000 to 28,000 years. The last 4 flip-flops took about 7,000 years each. So it's not fast no matter how you look at it.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I guess like these cataclysms or whatever are like supposed to be like, real rapid polar shifts. So like in some intervals, apparently it supposedly just kind of happens in a,
So that kind of begs the question of like, because you said earlier that it's possible that, whether we as in humanity or some other race got to the point that we did technologically before the poles shift. It's like, if this is such a slow process, shouldn't we be able to have adapted by the time that it takes effect?
Yeah,
I would think that we would, right? Like, so it kind of pokes a hole in that.
You kind of hope maybe the only adapting is getting the fuck off, man. Like,
so we just
the whole
bounced on
goddamn
Earth.
rock. Yeah.
You just won up your own conspiracy theory. Congratulations.
Right. So, possibly we got off of here. I don't know.
Okay, so the gentleman's name, you were mentioning a guy saying in the cosmos of time, it's not a fart in the wind. The gentleman who you're talking about in that clip is Dan Pena. I'm trying to find that clip now. I will post that in chat once I find it. But Dan Pena is the name of the guy. God damn it, there's so many goddamn
Well, you got all of 30 seconds before the show ends.
Yeah. So I will post it later, and then I'll post it in group as well. We've come to the end of the show. That's all the time we have. I want to thank Rick so much for joining us and talking to us about those wonderful, wonderful conspiracy theories that maybe aren't so maybe aren't such a bullshit after all. Thank you to everyone who tuned in. Wow, I see that my intentions of promoting the show a bit more. Maybe I need to tag people more often. Every time I promote it did. It worked, and I'm really thankful to everyone who tuned in and joined us tonight. Thank you so much. Thank you to my co-hosts. As always, without you guys, I wouldn't even have the show. So again,
and don't forget it.
We're playing rough tonight. So be sure to come and join us next time. And if you don't, I'll just tag you endlessly on a daily basis until you fucking do. So thanks so much again. Good night and go home.
Bye.
Bye.